The rain was crashing down in Montecito when the black car stopped at the iron gates, the kind of storm that presses the sky low and heavy instead of washing anything away. While the world had spent weeks replaying ambulance footage and arguing on talk shows, Meg Ryan stayed silent inside her living room, cut off from the noise completely. No interviews, no statements, no social media posts. Paparazzi spotted her walking her dog with oversized sunglasses, guessing grief or guilt, but they had no idea what she was really carrying. The truth had been locked inside her for over a decade, and it all traced back to Rob Reiner. Rob wasn't just a director to her, he was family. During a private, vulnerable moment years ago, he shared something with her so heavy she tried to bury it and move on. But now, with everything exposed, running wasn't an option anymore. Sitting alone in a tall velvet chair, the lights dimmed low, Meg looked nothing like the polished rom-com icon people remembered. No smile, no charm, no Hollywood glow. She gripped a mug just to steady herself, eyes red from sleepless nights, finally choosing honesty over image. She posted a black and white photo of them dancing and smiling, writing, "Oh, how we will miss this man. Thank you, Rob and Michelle, for believing in love, laughter, and fairy tales." Then she spoke plainly, her voice rough and stripped of softness. "If I keep pretending the perfect Hollywood family was real, then I'm part of what broke him." People thought they knew Rob Reiner, the laugh, the beard, the baseball cap, the movies that made the world feel safe. But Meg saw what cameras never did. Behind closed doors, tension grew quietly between Rob and Michelle, hanging in the air like fog. She stared out the rain-streaked window and admitted the truth. When Harry Met Sally ended, Rob didn't just move on. He and Michelle brought her into their lives, showing her what she believed was real love. But about 5 years ago, something shifted, and Meg felt it instantly. There were no cameras, no setup, no performance that night, but the moment Meg stepped inside, she felt it immediately. The air was thick, tense, almost vibrating, like the echo of a fight that had already burned through the room. This wasn't a normal family disagreement. It felt colder, quieter, like something deep had cracked and never fully healed. Meg shifted in her chair as she remembered it, setting her mug down a little too hard. "Nick was there," she said carefully, choosing every word. She made it clear she wasn't judging or accusing anything, but what she saw that night shook her. The person in front of her didn't feel like the same young man she had known for years. She remembered his eyes most. Empty, distant, like something had gone dark inside. It scared her more than anger ever could. Everyone sat at the table trying to act normal, and Rob, gentle as always, tried to lighten the mood with a harmless dad joke about the pasta. No one laughed. Instead, Nick slammed his fist on the table. Plates rattled, glasses tipped, and the room froze completely. That silence wasn't awkward, it was fearful. No one moved, no one spoke, and everyone felt it at once. Meg leaned forward as she spoke, hands clenched tight. She said she still hopes something good can come from this tragedy, that awareness and compassion might grow from it. She believes Rob and Michelle would want something humane, something that leads to understanding instead of more pain. That moment never left her. She looked at Michelle, usually the strongest one in the room. Michelle didn't shout or react, she just flinched, and that reaction said everything. Then Meg looked at Rob. What she saw in his eyes wasn't anger, it was fear, real fear. For just 1 second he looked at her like he was begging her to stay quiet, to keep pretending everything was fine. So she did. She ate the pasta, sipped the wine, smiled through it, even though her heart was racing. She left early, and when Rob walked her to the car, he hugged her too tightly, holding on longer than usual. "He's just going through a rough patch," he whispered. "We just have to love him through it." Meg shook her head, remembering that moment. Rob truly believed love could fix anything, but love alone isn't armor, and when someone is unstable, love can be twisted instead of healing. Over time, Rob's calls changed. Less excitement, less joy. He stopped talking about movies and started asking about safety. That's when Meg knew something was deeply wrong. Rob and Michelle had started making quiet moves behind the scenes, selling things off, shifting money, liquidating assets without drawing attention. They weren't planning vacations or downsizing for comfort. They were preparing for something they didn't want to name. Meg explained that she worked closely with Rob over the years, especially during When Harry Met Sally and later Sleepless in Seattle. She knew his rhythm, his energy, his passion for film. But near the end, that man was fading. Even close friends didn't see how bad it had become. She later learned Rob and Michelle had been covering Nick's debts. Not normal bills, not small mistakes, but serious obligations that scared them. They believed if they fixed one more problem, wrote one more check, maybe the chaos would finally stop. The day the news broke, Meg was in New York, sitting in a taxi. Her phone started buzzing non-stop. Not calls, just vibration after vibration. Then a message came through from Billy Crystal. Only 3 words. Gone, Meg. At first she didn't understand. Gone where? Then she opened the link. Aerial footage, police lights, yellow tape around the house. Her chest tightened, and it felt like the air disappeared from the car. What hurt the most was admitting the truth. She was devastated, but she wasn't shocked. Deep down, she knew the version of Nick she saw years earlier had taken over. That realization is something she says she'll live with forever. Meg pushed back on the idea that this was a sudden collapse. She said the media keeps simplifying it. Stress, pressure, mental health buzzwords. But what wasn't being discussed was manipulation, control, and how love and guilt slowly became a cage. Rob and Michelle were trapped in their own home, their peace, their freedom, all slipping away quietly. 3 months before everything ended, Meg tried to visit. The gate was closed. Michelle answered through the intercom, her voice flat and strained. She said it wasn't a good day. Then Meg heard shouting and glass breaking in the background. Meg drove away, trying to respect boundaries. That decision still haunts her. 2 days before the end, Rob called her at 3 a.m. Calm, almost too calm. He said he wanted to hear her laugh. Then he admitted something painful. I think we loved too much and protected too little. He told her Nick demanded the house deed, convinced Rob was hiding money. But for the first time, Rob said no. Meg told him she was proud of him. She believed, just for a moment, that he was finally taking control back. I didn't know, Meg whispered, her voice shaking as the weight finally hit her. She admitted she never imagined that drawing a line would be the moment everything collapsed. Her hands clenched, eyes burning with grief and anger at the same time. She said she keeps hearing people debate the trial, the defenses, the excuses, the talk of diminished responsibility. But she pushed back hard. The Nick she saw knew exactly what he was doing. He knew which buttons to press and when to press them. If he cried, Michelle softened. If he hinted at hurting himself, Rob panicked and reached for solutions. Meg said he turned love into leverage. Kindness became a tool. Empathy became pressure. That wasn't confusion or chaos. That was calculation. Her voice stayed cold and steady as the rain hammered against the windows, matching the tension in the room. When love finally stopped producing money, forgiveness, and protection, she said everything snapped. The people who built their lives around him were broken by it. Meg reminded the world who Rob was, the man who gave us the Princess Bride, the man who taught us that love could conquer anything. And the cruel irony, she said, was that his love for his son became the very thing that destroyed him. It wasn't a lack of love that caused the tragedy. It was too much of it. A love without limits. A love that couldn't say no. A love so blinding it missed the danger standing right in front of it. Meg looked straight into the camera, stripped of any Hollywood mask. She said she's speaking now because she wants justice, not just in a courtroom, but justice for Rob's legacy. She doesn't want him remembered as a headline or a statistic. She wants him remembered as a man who fought, who tried desperately to save his child, even when it cost him everything. Her tone sharpened as she warned others. We have to stop glorifying endless self-sacrifice. Giving until there's nothing left isn't love when fear lives in your own home. Love alone is not survival. Rob and Michelle didn't choose survival, she said quietly, and the world feels colder without them. For a moment, Meg Ryan looked completely shattered. She whispered that she missed him, missed her friend, missed knowing he was still out there creating joy and laughter. She admitted the regret still haunts her. Driving away from that gate is something she'll never forgive herself for. But she promised she would spend the rest of her life making sure the truth is known. They weren't just lost, she said. They were betrayed. And that kind of loss doesn't fade. It lingers. It stays. The room fell silent as the rain continued outside, and the truth hung heavy in the air, impossible to ignore. The truth about the Reiner household finally surfaced, and it hit like a shockwave. What had been hidden behind closed gates for years was suddenly exposed. The slow darkness that swallowed two bright Hollywood figures was no longer a rumor or a whisper. Meg's interview shattered the perfect image. It showed just how thin the line is between unconditional love and total self-destruction. There was no neat ending, no soft wrap-up. The screen faded to black on her tear-streaked face, and that silence said everything. Viewers were left with one chilling realization. Sometimes the danger isn't hidden in the shadows. Sometimes it's sitting right at the dinner table, protected by politeness, fear, and misplaced loyalty. The reaction was instant and explosive. People didn't just react to what Meg revealed, but how she revealed it. The illusion of the Reiner family, Hollywood's so-called gold standard, collapsed in real time. For years, Rob and Michelle were held up as proof that success and love could coexist. With every word Meg spoke, that belief cracked apart. Within hours, Meg posted a tribute online honoring Rob and Michelle. The internet lit up immediately. News outlets rushed to keep up as the narrative shifted from tragedy to a deeper story of manipulation, loyalty, and betrayal. Meg didn't stop there. In the days that followed, she shared more pieces she had kept private for years: notes, messages, emails, and handwritten letters. Each one revealed a family slowly breaking under pressure, hidden behind fame and smiles. She later gave a statement to Vanity Fair, refusing to let gossip twist her words. She described a quiet weekend in the Hamptons years earlier. The ocean calm, candles lit, yet tension filling the air like static. That memory unlocked everything. The cracks had been forming long before the public ever noticed. Meg recalled Rob standing by the water, looking older and worn down. He turned to her and asked quietly, "Do you think I failed him?" He wasn't talking about his career. He meant his son. Nick had accused Rob of caring more about his movies than his family. That guilt cut deep. Rob always wanted to be the good guy, the one who made everyone happy. And that desire was used against him again and again. Meg described how Michelle slowly faded. Once full of creativity, she stopped painting altogether. Her canvases went blank. She told Meg she was always waiting for the phone to ring, the next crisis, the next emergency. They lived on edge every day. You could see it in their faces, in their posture, in the way they braced themselves constantly. And the hardest truth of all? People around them knew something was wrong. Everyone felt it. But no one stepped in. No one wanted to cross that line. That silence mattered more than anyone wants to admit. "We told ourselves it wasn't our place," Meg admitted quietly. We called it privacy, but really it was avoidance. Her words didn't just expose pain inside the Reiner home, they exposed the silence around it. "We all knew," she said. "We just didn't want to say it out loud." Her next appearance came on a podcast, and this time her voice was sharper, fueled by anger that had turned into resolve. She didn't hold back. "The producers, the friends, the people at every holiday party," she said fiercely. "We all saw it." Nick's outbursts, his tone, the way he spoke to Rob and Michelle, it wasn't just stress or youth, it was control. Rob was always protective. Anytime someone suggested space or real help, he shut it down fast. "You don't understand addiction," he'd say. But Meg made it clear this went beyond that. This was a hostile takeover of a family. They stayed quiet out of respect. They didn't want to hurt Rob's pride or push too hard, and in doing that, they watched the situation sink deeper. "We let them drown," she said bluntly, because no one wanted to challenge the captain of a sinking ship. Then Meg shared a memory she had buried for years. One quiet night in the kitchen, just her and Nick. He was calm, charming, almost disarming. "That's the thing," she said. "He could be charming just like Rob." Nick looked at her and said, "My parents live in a fantasy world. They think everything has a happy ending." At the time, she brushed it off as attitude. Looking back, she saw it clearly. It wasn't sarcasm, it was a warning. The room went silent as that realization settled. The signs had always been there, hidden behind charm and denial. With the January 7th trial approaching, Meg's voice carried beyond podcasts and interviews. It was echoing in headlines and courtrooms, too. When asked if she was afraid, her answer was firm. "He took the people I loved," she said. "He has nothing left to take from me." The fear was gone. What remained was purpose. Meg began building a foundation in Rob and Michelle's name, focused on helping older parents facing manipulation or abuse from their adult children. "It's a silent epidemic," she said. "Rob became the face of it, without ever realizing it." Her most haunting moment came later. She visited the house again. The police tape was gone, but the life was too. The music, the food, the laughter, all gone. Inside Rob's study, his glasses sat on the desk. A script lay open, frozen in time. She sat in his chair and made a promise. The story wouldn't end in silence or shame. It would end with the truth. The raw, uncomfortable truth he was too gentle to say himself. That promise became her mission. Meg Ryan breaking her silence wasn't about headlines. It peeled back the gloss and left the heartbreak exposed. What remained was the truth of a family that collapsed quietly, long before the world was paying attention. This wasn't just another Hollywood tragedy. It was painfully human. It forced people to look inward, at their own homes, their own silences, and the hurts no one wants to admit. Meg's confession turned Rob and Michelle Reiner's story into a mirror, showing how love, loyalty, and silence can collide in dangerous ways. It stopped being about sirens or scandal. It became about quiet damage hiding behind wealth, charm, and closed doors. The woman once known for on-screen romance changed in front of the world. Meg Ryan, the eternal girl next door, had grown up, and in doing so, she forced everyone else to grow up too. In the weeks after her foundation announcement, the story refused to fade. Every major outlet wanted her. Morning shows, late-night interviews, magazine covers, but Meg wasn't chasing attention. She was chasing purpose. Calm and composed on camera, pain still visible behind steady eyes, she made one thing clear. "This isn't about Hollywood anymore," she said. "It's about how silence protects the wrong people." Donations poured in. Survivors from across the country reached out with letters, messages, and voicemails. Elderly parents describing manipulation, fear, and guilt at the hands of their adult children. Stories that sounded heartbreakingly familiar. Meg read every single one. "Every story feels like déjà vu," she said, "echoes of what Rob and Michelle lived through." The foundation, now called the Reiner Project, quickly became more than a charity. It became a movement. She partnered with lawyers, psychologists, and advocates, pushing for stronger protections for vulnerable parents. At a press conference, she said plainly, "We need to call this what it is, not family drama. Abuse is abuse, no matter who's holding the checkbook." The applause was loud, but the toll was visible. Each appearance seemed to drain her more. She held herself together with sheer willpower. Reporters noticed she still wore Rob's silver bracelet, refusing to take it off, a quiet symbol of who she was fighting for. On the eve of the trial, Meg released a short handwritten statement online. "Tomorrow isn't about revenge, it's about accountability. Rob and Michelle believed in redemption. I believe in truth, and truth is how we honor them." The message went viral within hours. Social media filled with tributes, film clips, and quotes. "As You Wish, Rob" appeared again and again. Hollywood seemed to pause, united in grief and reflection. Speculation about the trial intensified. Would Meg testify? Should she? Some said her words could change everything. Others warned the cost would be heavy. She didn't comment. The night before court began, a photographer captured Meg walking alone along the Malibu shoreline. Wind pulling at her hair, eyes fixed on the water, lost in thought. Later, she said quietly, "Love should never cost someone their peace. And if Rob were here, he'd tell me to keep fighting." What began as a storm in Brentwood had grown into something far bigger, an awakening. Meg Ryan turned tragedy into testimony, pain into purpose, and loss into a warning for anyone still trapped in silence. As the morning of the trial arrived under a heavy gray sky, the air outside the courthouse felt like it was holding its breath. Reporters packed the courthouse steps, cameras flashing like lightning, as Meg Ryan stepped out of a black SUV. Dressed in a simple black suit, hair pulled back, her face was calm but unreadable. She didn't wave or smile. She just walked forward, steady and silent, flanked by her legal team. Inside, the courtroom was already overflowing. Spectators whispered, journalists scribbled, and even the judge seemed to understand this wasn't just another Hollywood case. When Meg took her seat, heads turned. For a moment, she looked like the movie star the world once knew. Then she lifted her chin, and it was clear she wasn't here to perform. When her name was called, she stood tall and took the oath without hesitation. Her voice didn't shake. "I knew Rob Reiner for over 30 years, she said. "I loved him like family." The room fell silent. She spoke of his compassion, his kindness, and the danger of love when it blinds instead of protects. As she continued, flashes of emotion crossed her face, pain, anger, disbelief. She spoke about the calls, the warnings, the moments she tried to help, and the moments she stayed quiet. She didn't soften it. "We all saw it," she said. "We all knew something was wrong, and we did nothing, including me." That admission hit hard. Even the defense team shifted uneasily. Meg took a breath and went on. She said Nick wasn't powerless. He was in control. He used guilt like a weapon and pity like leverage. He played on love because he knew it worked. The courtroom felt heavy. You could feel the tension ripple through the room. She shared something Rob once told her. "If I love him harder, maybe it'll save him." Meg paused, then said quietly, "But love doesn't save everyone. Sometimes it hides the truth." When she finished, there was no applause, only silence. Even the judge hesitated before speaking. It didn't feel like testimony. It felt like a reckoning. Meg stepped down without looking back. She didn't need to. Whatever pain, guilt, or history existed was finished in that moment. Outside, the crowd erupted. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted her name, But Meg didn't stop. She got into the waiting car and disappeared behind tinted glass. That night, news anchors replayed her words on repeat. Social media exploded with praise: brave, fearless, honest. But Meg stayed silent. Those close to her said she went home, fed her dog, and sat by the window for hours, watching the rain. Because no matter how powerful the truth is, it doesn't bring people back. It doesn't heal everything. It only keeps the darkness from being buried. And that's where this story leaves us: raw, haunting, and impossible to forget. Meg Ryan didn't just reopen an old Hollywood wound. She forced the world to finally look at what fame can hide. Her courage turned silence into power, and her pain became a voice for people who never got the chance to speak. If this story hit you hard, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next deep dive into the hidden corners of fame and power. The more we talk about it, the less power silence holds. See you in the next one.